I'm asking you to address this new defense of mistaken identity directly. Dr. Ford, with what degree of certainty do you believe Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
100%.
That Dr. Ford may have been sexually assaulted by some person in some place at some time. But I have never done this to her or to anyone. That's not who I am. It is not who I was. I am innocent of this charge.
A day after emotional testimony from both Judge Brett Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says the Senate will start debating Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. McConnell's announcement comes after the White House Friday ordered an FBI investigation into the allegations against Kavanaugh. Arizona Senator Jeff Flake called for a delay in Kavanaugh's confirmation vote so that the FBI could look into these accusations, something Democrats have been calling for since those claims became public.
I have been speaking with a number of people on the other side. We've had conversations ongoing for a while with regard to making sure that we do due diligence here. And I think it would be proper to delay the floor vote for up to, but not more than 1 week, in order to let the FBI continue to do an investigation limited in time and scope to the current allegations that are there.
And joining me now are CBSN political contributors Lynda Tran and Michael Graham. Lynda is a Democratic strategist and founding partner at 270 Strategies. She's in Washington. And Michael is a Boston Herald columnist and politics editor and NHJournal.com. He is in Boston. Lynda, Michael, thanks to both of you. Let's start with the same question for both of you. Do you think Friday's developments will make a difference in the final vote a week from now? Lynda, you first.
I think there's a lot of potential that they will make a difference, and a lot of it hinges on what we discover. Certainly the FBI investigation is designed to gather additional information. As a lot of folks have said, it's not going to draw any conclusions necessarily, but it is going to potentially bring additional information into the public sphere, and that could certainly impact the way that certain key votes in particular in the Senate are going to go, specifically Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, potentially Jeff Flake. So we'll see how that turns out. Michael, what do you think? Do you think we're going to be right back in the same place a week from now?
I want you to think back to where we were a week ago. And now look for the idea that we have any idea where we're going to be. We are on a ship that was headed to Mars and got hit by a meteor. We are flying fast at political speeds. Nobody has any idea. You could see anything from serious, incontrovertible proof that Judge Kavanaugh assaulted a woman to complete collapse of Dr. Ford's case, and someone could step forward and say, I drove her that day, to anything. I mean, look, we have gone from a guy who was considered a lock after the committee finished its original work to talking about a guy who ran drug, rape, gang club in high school. That's how far we went in a week. So I have no predictions of any kind except for strap yourself in.
It is head spinning, that is for sure. Lynda, I want to play some of a confrontation that Senator Jeff Flake had with a few women Friday morning before the Judiciary Committee's vote. Let's listen.
I told the story of my sexual assault. I told it because I recognized in Dr. Ford's story that she's telling the truth. What you are doing is allowing someone who actually violated a woman to sit in the Supreme Court. This is not tolerable. You have children in your family. Think about them. I have 2 children. I cannot imagine that for the next 50 years they will have to have someone in the Supreme Court who has been accused of violating a young girl. What are you doing, sir?
I was sexually assaulted and nobody believed me. I didn't tell anyone, and you're telling all women that they don't matter, that they should just stay quiet, because if they tell you what happened to them, you're going to ignore them. That's what happened to me, and that's what you're telling all women in America.
Now, our Nancy Cortez reports that after that incident, Flake spoke to Delaware Senator Chris Coons and said he was, quote, really having trouble with this. So how important do you believe this moment was and will be? And I say that to you, Lynda, because you and I were talking earlier about how all of this speaks to so many women who either were victims of a sexual assault themselves or have friends or family members that were. I mean, this is a very specific time in history. And I think that Jeff Flake in that moment, and maybe other lawmakers realized in this moment, that this is about a lot more than Dr. Ford and Brett Kavanaugh.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Tanya. I mean, that clip that you just showed was stunning in so many ways, but also riveting, practically as riveting as the testimony from Dr. Blasey Ford yesterday, because it was so raw. You could feel her pain and her rage, and you could relate to it. If you're a survivor, you could absolutely relate to it, but even if you aren't, and you could understand and sympathize with Senator Flake, the look on his face, just the exchange was so personal and just made it so clear that everything we're talking about today, everything that we're going to hear over the next week and down to the vote that we see on the floor is not just about Brett Kavanaugh. It is about what his nomination and the allegations against him mean to millions and millions of women around this country.
So, yeah, so Michael, a lot of people may say, look, it is unfair to ask, Brett Kavanaugh to shoulder the burden of the Me Too movement, which is what a lot of people are pointing to. This, he claims he's innocent. That he's innocent of these charges. But even if he is, I'm just positing this to you, even if he is completely innocent of these charges, might this not be the time in history for a Supreme Court justice like Brett Kavanaugh?
First of all, I'm glad that we're acknowledging right up front that we are not and have not been for a while talking at all about Brett Kavanaugh or Dr. Ford. That conversation was left behind a long time ago. This is about macro politics, big politics. The Me Too movement is certainly part of that. But you need to understand that part of the reason why some traditional Republicans who never would have had any interest in supporting Donald Trump decided to back him is that they precisely fear this idea that we're going to be in, titanic tribal struggles of identity politics. And people are going to say, does it really matter if he's guilty? Isn't it more important that somebody get punished? And there's a small and shrinking group of people who are in the right coalition who feel that way and are very, very disturbed by this.
But Michael,
they understand the emotion of court.
I agree, but a lot of people wouldn't say that he's punished. I mean, a lot of people will say no one is entitled to be on the Supreme Court. And there are many, many, federal judges who are capable of doing the job well. So, in other words, even if he did not get the position, it's not necessarily punishing him. It's not rewarding him.
Anyone who sees what has happened to Judge Kavanaugh the past 10 days and thinks he hasn't been punished is not watching the same story that I'm watching.
That is a good point. Now, Michael, are there any other Republican senators you're watching closely after Friday's events? Besides the usual players, aside from the usual players.
It's so big. I think that Lynda was absolutely right on. There's this big macro political story going on. Everybody's just clinging to their political boat. We have no idea where this is going to wash up. It's going to be driven. No one's going to stand up and say, I know how it looks and I know the pain, but I'm going to stand the rule of law requires. That's just not going to happen. They're going to say, I just got the most vital information for our democracy. My polls fell 8 points in the past 5 days. I shall be voting X. And that's how this is going to go.
Right. But, okay, so Lynda, let me bring you in for a second. I mean, obviously, the appointment of a Supreme Court justice or the nomination of a Supreme Court justice is a political act, and no one is more aware of that than President Trump. I think that this is a moment when President Trump is also aware of his, what kind of female support he has. We're going into midterms, the Republicans are aware of this. This makes it particularly treacherous ground. Wouldn't you agree, Lynda?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, as we were heading into the hearing yesterday, the latest Morning Consult poll showed that among women Republican voters and independent women voters, their perception of both Donald Trump and of Brett Kavanaugh had plummeted over the last week. So clearly, people are tuned into this, and there will be political consequences one way or another. Right. And more broadly, yes, this is a conversation about what we've witnessed over the last year with the Me Too movement. And yes, it is long overdue. But at the end of the day, this is a job interview. And what we saw yesterday from Brett Kavanaugh should be disturbing, even if you don't believe Dr. Blasey Ford when she says she was 100% certain that Brett Kavanaugh is the person who assaulted her. Even if you don't believe that, to witness somebody who was so extraordinarily partisan, so angry, and particularly angry in his exchanges with women senators, somebody who just did not show the kind of balanced temperament that you saw, for example, from Neil Gorsuch, I think that should be troubling to anybody who's watching and concerned about the sanctity of the Supreme Court.
Michael, what would you say to that? Because there are a lot of people that are echoing what Lynda said, you know, that in some ways he had them during his opening statement. They were right there with him. But then he kind of lost a lot of people during the questioning. They perceived him as a little arrogant, as actually you know, combative, and they started to think, well, wait a minute, I was with him just a minute ago. I don't like what I'm seeing now.
Answering the questions was not Judge Kavanaugh's strong suit. He clearly was uncomfortable. That was evident, by the way, on the Fox News interview, where, you know, you understood his strategy. His lawyers were telling him, look, you can only say so many. We literally had 7 sentences that he was allowed to say. Yeah. And I get that. But if he had been more artful, like, you know, someone like me who does talk radio, I could fake my way around it. He could not fake that way. So he was not good at questions. But I just have to ask, I've never been to a job interview that started with, did you know that we all think that you're guilty of rape or attempted rape because somebody said so? And I've also I don't know how Judge Gorsuch would react if he had been accused of committing rape, a charge 36 years old with literally no corroborating evidence, and the only evidence available was, you know, dispositive towards him. So I don't know how that would work. I'm unfamiliar with this kind of job interview. And I will say about women that it's interesting. I agree completely that this is a loser for Republicans. But the women who supported Trump, and people forget, Trump actually won white female voters by 52% very narrowly. Rural voters who are women support Kavanaugh. New numbers out today from West Virginia and I want to say North Dakota. I'm not positive about the second one. No, I'm sorry, Arizona.
Right.
Both show that women Republicans, after the hearing, were with Kavanaugh. And so it's weird math for Republicans. They know they're going to get that women are not going to be on their side. They need to energize the women who are on their team. And a lot of women say, I'll be very angry if you abandon Kavanaugh, if you give up this fight. They're partisans, you know, in this fight, just like, you know, like everyone else is.
Sure, sure. And Michael, are there any sort of silent or quiet discussions among Republicans about a potential replacement for Kavanaugh? Let's say something comes up that can't be ignored, or let's say he pulls himself out. I mean, I know that time is of the essence for Republicans, so they've got to have a few people in their back pocket, no?
Well, you know, it's interesting. The name that comes across up immediately is Amy Coney Barrett. That just without even thinking, that's just what comes out, because what Republicans perceive is that she would actually be the more aggressive conservative that would make Democrats even more angry if you're talking about judicial philosophy. Once this, and then, you know, this comes back to something. How this is not about Kavanaugh. This is Judge Kavanaugh is as mainstream a Republican judge as you're going to get. Mitt Romney would have picked him. Rubio would have picked him. And this guy isn't some kind of sketchy pick, you know, who had a troubled background that Trump was trying to push through. He gave a very middle-of-the-road Republican pick. Democrats announced from the beginning, we are going to defend this seat at all costs. We're going to keep it empty at all costs. Anything we can do to stop it. And they would do the same thing to Amy Coney Barrett or to, you know, Albert Einstein, or, you know, it doesn't matter. George Washington. Wouldn't matter. Get the same treatment because this is about politics.
But let me ask you something, Michael. Did you find him believable when he explained his yearbook page, when he talked about his past as a young man drinking a few beers? Did you find all of that believable?
Well, I did, but more importantly, I've heard from quite a few people on the right. I was actually at a group with a group of Republicans in New Hampshire who are so mad that the Republicans might abandon this guy, and they come back to the same thing. They see this, and this is fair or unfair, as a battle between the feels, as they call it, people on the left who want to do things by feeling, how do you feel about somebody, versus the thinks. That is, what is the evidence? You know, who was where? You know, these people signed letters, and they are very, very frustrated that we would have this conversation. They feel like,
well, they must be happy then that there's an investigation. Then now they must be happy.
Yeah. But what's fascinating is how quickly they are to bring up incidences where there was widespread belief in the claims of the alleged victim, like the Duke lacrosse case and the University of Virginia case. And their argument is, look, people believed them too. And then the facts came out. And so that's, I hear a lot more of that. I have yet to hear anyone, I take it back. I've heard very few people say, for example, I don't think Dr. Ford's being honest. She's a trick. You know, she's a scam. I've heard almost none of that. What I've heard is, wow, they both seem to be really upset. This is terrible what's happened to both of them. What does the evidence say? Right. So they must be then welcoming as well this FBI investigation. Well, unfortunately, we all know this is not an FBI investigation. It's a background check. He's been through 6 of them. They're going to talk to the same people the Senate could talk to. Once again, we will not be talking about the findings in the Ford case a week from now. We'll be talking about the allegation that he was on a yacht in the Mediterranean, and while he was there, he had blah, 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 who knows what. That's what we'll be by this time next week. Right. All right. So, Lynda, if, this week goes by and Kavanaugh is confirmed, how does that change Democratic strategy under under 40 days until the midterms? I don't think it does, honestly. I think that Democrats have to be extraordinarily focused on organizing in those districts that they have hope to flip when it comes to the House. I mean, as you know, Tanya, we need 23 seats, but there are dozens and dozens that have pretty good demographics and a good makeup and potential for Democrats to take back the majority in the House. And there's certainly some really strong potential races on the Senate side as well. And so while this moment that we're living through right now is so critically important on a lot of different levels, and if Brett Kavanaugh ends up seated on the Supreme Court, it will have implications for generations to come. The time frame between now and Election Day for people who are on the ballot has to be just laser focused on making sure that they speak to the issues of potential constituents and make sure they get their message out. All right, Lynda Tran and Michael Graham, thanks to both of you. It's been a crazy couple of days. I'm sure we'll be talking more about all of this in a week.